Yeah, that's all we can hope for. Oh. Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I'm Matt. I'm Mark. You're the other fella, Matt. Hey, Matt, how you doing today, buddy?
Swapping egos today. That's all. That's what's going on. It's all
Oh
good.
gosh, brother, this Matt and I have actually we missed last week together. We had a special guest, Tim Neverett, and it was kind of weird hours when we could all get together. But man, I got to tell you, Matt, the questions you had, they were fantastic. And Tim was a great guest. You know, he came back with a lot of good things to say about his trade being an announcer both in radio and television. And I was just so thankful that we had him on the show. But you know, had him, and then we had Mr. Toronto on here. We're talking about the kids, kids
Yeah.
baseball.
Well,
And
I'm glad that all worked out. It sounded to me like the thing that struck me about Tim was he takes his business seriously. Like he is very, business-like in how he operates. The whole spiel about friends not recognizing all the time what your schedule is like when you're a broadcaster and the fact that you can't just wing it.
yeah,
There's a
game
lot of work involved.
game time's not till 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock tonight, dude. Come on. You don't just step into the all the preliminary stuff you have to do to prepare for it. I was glad he shared so much of that. And
Absolutely.
maybe some of his friends will get a little bit more if they listen to that episode. I don't know. Oh my gosh. I'm wearing here my Chicago White Sox hockey jersey that I got when Karen and Scott went to see the Rays play the White Sox, was it last year, and watch us lose a couple of games to a team that only won 40 games last year. Oh gosh.
That's Murphy's Law, Mark.
It is, trying to find balance in the universe is always fun anyway.
Mhm.
And in Chicago, I think they've got a sense of what's going on there now. It's we're going to talk about a lot of little things. I want to set this one piece up. I know we want to talk about Evan. Well,
Yep.
no, we want to talk about Pete.
Mhm.
Uh, we want to talk about Mr. Devers, Mr. Manfred. Oh, I mean, and there's so much more. I mean, initially, Matt, when I was looking at this a few days back, I thought, okay, we'll talk about Derek Shelton, and we'll talk about oh, geez, who was the other fella for the Rockies? Bud Black. Yeah, and even Dave Roberts was saying, he couldn't have done anything with what they've given. He couldn't have done any better. So I thought those were going to be our topics, man, but they kind of got slided to the side.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I'll say that I actually feel happy for Mr. Shelton because I figure he's going to land on his feet and he's going to get an opportunity to do something bigger with another
Yeah.
group. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy for him on that too. I think because it wasn't going to be a good situation for him for the rest of this year anyway. So good things to come. We'll see. But then, like I said this morning, I get the text or the DM from you and say, let me see if I can bring it up here real quickly. What are we going to talk about here? Oh, geez. You said, was it a few topics we may want to touch on? Rob, on death and Pete, Devers situation, early trade candidates, and Evans' retirement. So there you go. I think those all hit pretty much the mark.
Yep.
But I mean, were you surprised? Well, I guess you shouldn't be surprised because I pointed out that you said that you foresaw this whole thing about Evan coming back, and but you want to start with him?
Yeah, we can definitely start with him. I think, you know, whenever you trade a player, especially the way that it happened, right? Like how a player leaves an organization matters a lot. Like we just talked about the Pirates. Barry Bonds has no affinity towards the Pirates, right?
Right.
So even though he had a large portion of the beginning of his career in that whole love fest, and I would even say the same thing for Vladimir Guerrero in Montreal. When he left and he went to the Angels, he felt slighted a little bit because how he was treated and that they didn't really make an effort to keep him around, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times there's some of that. So when you're sitting there as Evan Longoria, and he had bled and sweat and poured his heart into Tampa the entire time he was there. He signed some deals that players would have said were team friendly, possibly too team friendly. and he had committed to the region. He was going to be that staple guy, that almost the Cal Ripken of the Tampa Bay Rays. He had to deal with the fact that the organization is committed to a business first environment, and had to make the intelligent decision instead of the heartfelt decision. And I think that it hit him like a ton of bricks. Let's
Yeah.
face it. When it happened, I don't think he expected it. His 10-5 rights were just around the corner. He ended up, I mean, we wrote articles about it. I was at SB Nation at the time, and it was a very big ordeal in terms of how it split fans down the middle. Some of them were happy that he was going to get a chance on a team that was competitive, right? Eventually, in the Giants. And there's others that said, like this is just another one of those hits that Tampa fans have to take, whether it's stadium related, whether it's all-star players related, it's always seems to be coming back to that same rhythm
Mhm.
of not being able to grab onto anything permanent. So, the outcome now with Evan, thankfully coming back to the Rays kind of settles a lot of that turmoil if you're a Rays fan. Now, I don't know if he did it for himself. I don't know if he did it for the fans. I don't know what his intentions are, whether or not he'll pick up a role with the organization going forward. I figure as soon as they go this far to honor you on the field the way they are going to do, that pretty much points to the fact that you will have a role with the organization for the foreseeable future.
Right.
So to me, I want this to be for the fans and Evan because they are married in this region in Tampa, and they need to have that to grab onto going forward and to start building on that. So this is the beginning. This is even before the new stadium is built, wherever it ends up being, you have the beginning now to say, okay, we've got our staple guy. He's back. He retired as a Ray. He's back into the fold of things. There's no animosity. We can move forward. So I'm very encouraged by this news, Mark.
Well, I think you hit on a point about bringing him back for himself and for the fans. And this, I think the fans really need a positive vibe right now. I mean, that's not to say the Cash and the boys don't bring it, they do, but more holistic, if you will, something broader than just any member of that team. And Evan definitely had that while he was here. We talk on the show time and again about franchise players, that Evan was definitely it, and Kiermaier, but there's a difference, and I honor Kiermaier for all that he's done, but Evan was a leader like there's no peer like that, at least amongst the guys right now, and we talked about his depth, whether he could be like a bench coach. He could be the guy sitting next to Cash. There is a positive energy that he will continue to bring to this team. And I really hope we see him in a role where he's visible. And it will endear the Rays organization even more so to the fans than they are right now.
When they build that new stadium, his statue should be in front of it or somewhere around it. With that whole arms up in the air for the 160, just that legendary home run,
Yeah,
trot
yeah.
towards first base. I think that's the picture that you want. And like you said, he needs to have a role in some way, shape, or form with the organization because there is so much good in what he has to say in his leadership, in his lessons to learn. Now, I want to spin it here just quickly because if they had decided to hang on to Evan, let's just go back in time just for fun and say if the Rays had approached Evan about moving to first base like the Red Sox have with Devers, what would his reaction have been?
He is a team player. I truly believe that. I believe he may have not liked it, and he may have had a conversation or two, I think, with management. But I don't believe he would have it wouldn't have wound up in the media. And did Devers really push this out to the media, or was it Ken Rosenthal hearing something and throwing it out there? But anyway, it goes. I think that it wouldn't be a long conversation, and it would not be thrown out to the universe.
Right. And I think he would have settled into that role. And if they needed him back at third, he would have been fine going back to third. I just think he was that type of player that didn't need to be positionally, solidified into that role to have value as one of the teammates on the field.
Yeah.
So I think that, like I say that there's no proof. We don't know. I mean, can you imagine telling Kevin Kiermaier he's going to have to play left field?
Oh boy, no, no, no. That I cannot see that happening at all. Phew, I wouldn't want to be in that conversation in any form. Ooh,
Yeah, so it's a different type of player, right? So I think just right there with that difference maker, that's what value Evan would bring to the role that he takes on with the organization. He's a selfless player, a little bit like Bernard Span, right? Who's had a really good role with the Rays as well. Like we don't see what he does day to day, but I know the kind of person he projects himself to
yeah.
be, and he comes across as somebody that's very grounded and solid in terms of being approachable. I think Evan's approachable as well. This doesn't come across as a grizzly player that you would like, not a Mike Schmidt type that you would have a hard time approaching to talk to and get tips from. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly the Rays integrate him into some sort of role and how that grows over time.
Well, I'm going to go back to what I was saying though. I would like to see it to be a visible role because you mentioned Denard Span. I was thinking of him as we were talking about this because is Denard still with us? I know he's in the front office and we're not going to see him, but I feel good that I know the type of person that he seems to be that he's there. But I'd like to see him every now and then too. So maybe I haven't watched enough of Brian and Dwayne to maybe they had him in an interview or two, and I haven't seen him there. But
Right.
we'll see. Well, you mentioned Rafael Devers, and man, oh man, oh man, geez. Like I said, I'm not sure how the story came out, but he's been, kind of a particular fella. I mean, you get a 10-year, $313 million contract. You got to feel good about yourself. You got to feel good about the position you're playing, and I wouldn't say prima donna, but you know your value and you know where you play well. So,
Yeah, I think it's the age, Mark. It's the age, it's the pride, and you're only 28. Like you're not in your 30s yet. Like I think if this would be 32, 33 years old, Rafael would have a different take on it because you've lost a bit of a step, right? And
yeah,
your jumps aren't as good. And most third basemen start slowing down. Even Nolan Arenado and all the best defenders that we've seen, including Evan Longoria, lost a little bit. Now, it doesn't mean you move them off third base all the time, but if you do have a better option, you sign somebody like Alex Bregman, all of a sudden those conversations need to be had. Now, I always see this kind of scenario as a failure on the leadership of the team because this whole conversation and everything playing out in the media needs to be sorted out before the signing ever takes place. It needs to be Alex Cora, it needs to be the owner, it needs to be Rafael. They, like you said, they dedicated hundreds of millions of dollars to this third baseman who is very young, who is very capable, and has, a long future in Boston. So if you're not respectful enough to have that conversation with them when you take on a new player who has no affinity to the team whatsoever, that's quite a slight. Yeah. It would have been like akin to, let's say in 2010, the Rays bring in a third baseman, right? And they tell Evan that he's got to move to first base. Well, I don't know. Like it's just to me, it's the timing thing. Like even Mike Trout has moved off of center field. A lot of other players have had to move positions, and I'm sure Rafael Devers knows this. But I think why he's reacting the way he is because of the timing and how they're asking him to adapt to first base. If they would have been able to pull off a deal on Tristan Casas, probably they had the conversation earlier and he gets spring training time at first base and then he feels better. But they didn't pull the trigger.
no,
So
no.
yeah, it ends up the way it is.
Well, Matt, you look at that and you just say to yourself, one, like you said, I think the communication wasn't there, and when the media gets hold of it before even maybe they've all had a chance to hunker down and knock it out, I could see that's a problem. Well, I'll tell you where a bigger problem was, is that my understanding was that Alex Cora was not the one that had to deliver the news, to Rafael Devers. And
Really?
if yes, and maybe it was out of respect, or where he's like, "Hey, come on, guys, this you want that? You want that? Fine." But Cora was not the one who actually delivered that message, or more. If he may have been in the room, but he was not. He was not going to be the one to do that, and kind of respect him for that. If he felt strongly about how things were going with Rafael, if they felt like because of the timing they were giving him enough room to do that in.
I will also add that remember when we had the person on, sorry, I don't remember his name. I think is Nick on for the Red Sox.
Yeah,
When we were
that.
talking about net, that's it. When we were talking about the bringing in of Alex Bregman, he was intended to play second base. And so there was a lot of unknown in terms of how quickly their young prospect was going to take to second base
Yeah.
and whether or not they're going to want to play him every day. But it doesn't matter because Alex Bregman had been a third baseman his entire career to that point. You don't not have the conversation with Rafael Devers because you have, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make any sense that way. Like the Red Sox have gotten a lot of flack over the years for how they treat players. Mookie Betts is one. A lot of other players that wanted to put their staple into that team, so it's just a long line of lists, a little bit like with the Rays with trading star players, right? They get a little bit of flack for that. So the Red Sox just have a way of not communicating well with some of their better players, and there's a track record for that. Unless you're David Ortiz,
Mhm.
they tend to treat you in a certain way. So yeah.
Yeah, it has been interesting, watching Boston. I mean, I was watching a game the other night. It was Tanner Hauck was up there pitching, and man, he went over 40 pitches in one inning, and it was just sad, sad, sad. And I thought, Cora, pull him, don't put that man through that, And who's it? I think they were playing the Tigers, and the Tigers just beat the hell out of him, and it was like this should not be happening.
And now
But
he's on IL. He went on IL today with a serious injury. He's probably out for the season.
Well, and we may not talk about all of it here, but you put up something on Blue Sky today, and it goes to the health of pitchers. I mean, this is something we talk about on the show quite a bit. You were talking about the Dodgers and how they don't give a damn. Why should they? They're like I'm responding back to saying they're a commodity. That's how they're seen. They're a commodity. Do they care about their health? They're just no. Just we're churning. Get the next guy up. With Snell. Have we done too much with Snell? We've done too much with Glass now, and whoever else is on that list. It's just ugly. And I think that's the case too when you're looking at the Red Sox. Another thing about the Red Sox is they are very, very particular about this whole thing with Devers. And I don't think they would have ever done a 10-year, $313 million contract with him if they weren't feeling the pain from the fans because of letting Mookie go, you know.
You know what the oddity is in that though, Mark? Like that Devers deal is actually a bargain when you compare it to what the latest deals have been for some of those sluggers. So if you look at him and Guerrero Jr., like would you rather pay 700 million to Guerrero or would you rather or sorry, 500 million to Guerrero or 314 million to Devers? Like what is the actual difference? I'd much
Yeah.
rather have Devers, to be honest, who's more athletic overall, I think, long term. So I don't know. It's one of those deals that I think that if the Red Sox ever do have to deal Devers because things never get patched up, they'll have plenty of teams that are willing to take on that contract, I think, without, having to give him away. They'll get something back.
We'll see how it all plays out, my friend. Then there was Rob.
He
um,
threw a wrench in everybody's week, I feel. I feel
oh,
like everybody went, what? And everybody had an opinion, right? It was nuts.
I'm all right. Yesterday, my wife and I visited with my brother. They were down in Longboat Key. We're heading down toward like Sarasota, Bradenton area down around there. So really nice, enjoying a nice meal. And I should just put the damn phone away, okay? And I said, Oh no, I looked down at it and said, no, 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 no. That's not happening. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah, because I heard that other guy pardoned him from the Oval Office, and now and now Rob's going to do it. Oh, Rob just visited with a guy in the Oval Office. Well, there you have it. So baseball's being run from the Oval Office. But the whole thing with Pete, and I've had mixed feelings about this myself. One, as you well know, I respect all the people who are entered into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Two, I don't respect the Hall of Fame itself because I've always felt like it's the whole process is goofy and writers doing more than players and blah 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 blah. The people that are in there, I think majority of them definitely should be and are deserving of it. But okay, you want to spill it? What actually the dear Mr. Rob Manfred said the other day?
So essentially, the thought process of Major League Baseball's rules, the way that he interpreted them out of the blue, was that once a player dies, he is no longer,
A
blocked.
threat, a threat. They're no longer a
Yeah,
threat. Is the word
right.
he used.
And they no longer need to be held to account, essentially. Like the fee has been paid. And so with pennies on their eyes, they're able to hope and dream from the other side that the process will go forward. And I'm guessing he's going to be on the Veterans Committee ballot now, a few times at least, and he'll get a chance to potentially go into the Hall of Fame. Now, I want to start with this, okay? I've heard stories and I've read stories about Hall of Fame players who are no golden child, personalities. They are rough, they are rugged, they are racist, they are this, they are that. Like there's a lot of different shades of colors and stripes of all kinds that are in the Hall of Fame. Nobody is perfect. They're all human. To me, like you just said, the fallacy of the entire thing is the system that is put in place to put people in the Hall of Fame, which I think is quite honestly like it's a joke and it slaps players in the face, great players. Like, oh, you're a 10th ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, you weren't all, and then there's like a degree of entering the Hall of Fame, right? There's oh, you're a first ballot. Oh, wow. Well, that means you must have been special. Oh, you must
Jeez.
like, and then there's some that are knocked off the ballot after great careers, and then all of a sudden the veterans have to look. It's like it's almost like you're begging to get into the Hall of Fame. And you feel that from some of the players when they get interviewed. They're so like emotional about it because it's almost like they've been put through the tourniquet just to get in there. So is it a reward? Or is it like excruciating pain for 10 years that you're going through this process? Like, come on. Like, it doesn't need to be like this. Hockey doesn't do it like that. Football doesn't do it like the NBA doesn't do it. So why does it have to be a whole theater production to get into the freaking Hall of Fame? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I hope the next commissioner has a sit down with the Hall of Fame and says, listen, guys, you are a museum. You're telling the story of baseball. There should be an entire portion of a wing that talks about all of the cheaters and the gamblers and because they're great stories. Like the 8 Men Out is a freaking awesome baseball story. It needs to be in there and to be taught as a lesson
Yep.
and to tell the history of baseball. Like Shula's Joe Jackson, I mean, the way he played showed that he was not really tanking,
Yeah.
even though he knew he had taken the money and he was gonna pay a price for it. But he also wasn't going to be the ostracized guy on the team when the entire rest of the team was doing what they were doing. So, what kind of human being was he? Well, he stood up, he played the way he knew how to play, he stuck by his friends. So where is the actual quote unquote harm? It's the taking the money, obviously, but let's say he had given it back after the World Series was done, then you know, where would people have stood at that point? Like it's ridiculous. But going back to Pete, to me, when you look at his baseball career all the way through, he is without a doubt one of the top 20 baseball players to ever play the game.
Yep.
How do you keep that out of the Hall of Fame? I don't understand it. I don't care if he cheated. I don't care if he took steroids. I don't care if he just put them in. Put Barry Bonds in there. Put everybody in there and tell the story. That
Yeah.
is what the Hall of Fame is.
Thank you. I mean, and you said it right there. Tell the story because all of us have flaws. And it just happens to be if you're a figure in the media or in sports, it gets spread everywhere. And certainly that was the case with Pete. Uh, so MLB, we don't forgive you until you die. And when you die, then we'll maybe consider bringing you back into the fold. Now, that's really, that's the way I think about it. It's like, what's the use? What's the freaking, why couldn't you do this for this man while he was alive? Yes, okay, maybe you're scared to hell of what he would say when he'd walk up to the podium. And you had to get the old hook and yank him off
Just set up the
stage.
mic with a switch, a tamper switch that you could turn off and on. Like, oh,
There you go. God knows we need those. But
uh,
no, there's a lot of things personally that above and beyond just the cheating that are questionable. And I'm not here to sit and judge that man's life. Sometimes I think the Hall of Fame should just be all about the numbers. What did they achieve? Just with the game, what did they do there? Where do I care I care about the person, but should the measure of the Hall of Fame include, oh, was this person an alcoholic? Did they have drug problems? Was there spouse issues? Were they cheating? Were there, steroids, all these different things. And if you're going to, what you do is like what you were saying, you tell the full story. Here is the great achievements of this person. Oh, and by the way, there was other parts along their journey that weren't so great. And
so think about it this way, Mark. Like, how many college players, like athletes or high school athletes, have they have a journey, right? We talked recently to an agent, right, who's going through the process of getting a lot of those players through their process. When they're going through those, they seek out information, and
yeah,
all of them have a different experience that they're going through. Sometimes they could have an alcoholic father, they could have an abusive parent, an abusive coach, a whole bunch of different things that happen to them. If they don't have those kinds of stories to lean on from the very top all the way down through the bottom so that they can be found when they need them,
yeah,
then we're doing them a disservice. So the way that I always see it is that if you can help somebody out along the way by showing them, look, this person was going through a lot of the similar things as what you're going to, and they made out okay.
yeah.
And this is how they dealt with it, or they didn't make out okay, and this is why they didn't make out okay. So you might want to do something different. Either way, it's a learning lesson that they get to assess and decide how they want to filter it. So, I don't know. To me, and the thing that makes me laugh the most about this is we have Barry Bonds, right? I just mentioned him, and
Yeah.
he went through the whole 10 years. He has almost zero shot of getting into the Hall of Fame unless the Veterans Committee surprises and puts him through, which I can't see.
No.
Pete Rose has a better chance of getting into the Hall of Fame than Barry Bonds. Like, in saying it, just it feels weird. It feels very odd. 10 years ago, nobody would have predicted that. It just in no world. So, like I said, I think both should be in there with the stories told, why, the rules that were in place at the time, the whole gamut, the fact that MLB sat on information for years and did nothing about it, that should be in there. It's a museum. It's not Major League Baseball. It is a museum, right?
I like that.
So, if you don't tell the stories, they're just gonna die, and your sport is worse off for it.
That's it's one of the best things I enjoy when I do work at the Tampa Baseball Museum. Obviously, it's a completely different thing, but the people come in and they share the stories. Some of them knew certain players, and you hear something, and you just like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought they were like that, or they did what? Oh my gosh. There's all those little things. Oh, they had that difficult in school. But the thing of it is, there are so many stories, and I think when you're showing, especially, I think you and I having had kids, you still have young ones. You're always looking at to share stories and to tell and to give them a big picture and saying, yes, there is value here. Yes, there are things that have changed, but there's a path that sometimes you got to watch yourself on as well. And I think that you've done that, but telling the whole story, you hit it on the money.
Yep, exactly. Simple as that, really. And it is simple when you sell it that way. It's almost an easy sell. It's like, why wouldn't we be keeping these people in? So in terms of the how you vote people into the Hall of Fame, I think it needs to be revamped completely.
Yep.
And it needs to have five aspects, in my opinion. And the one that needs to be added is the fans. One person, one vote. You know, on if you want to pick a day, I don't care. People go and vote, and that percentage, gets somehow rigged up to represent one vote or not, yada yada yada. And so there has to be a fan input, there has to be a managerial input, there has to be a front office input, and then there has to be the writers input. To me, it has to be better balanced to
Mhm.
represent the people that will go and enjoy the Hall of Fame.
Well put. So, one of the good things that came of making Pete eligible, they made more than just Pete eligible. I mean, Shoeless Joe Jackson is now eligible. He's no longer blocked out completely from Cooperstown. So, and the thing to remember too about Cooperstown, it wasn't as if when you went there you wouldn't find out anything about Pete Rose. There's displays there and such. We're talking about the inevitability of him probably getting a plaque, but I still like the idea of I should find the phrase, Matt. Something about he's no longer a threat to the game with the kind of activity. I said threat. I thought, good Lord, I don't think anybody's a threat. But anyway, what do I know? Oh, brother. So glad to see Shoeless Joe's there. However you may feel about the Hall of Fame, like me, I'm glad those people who are in there or on there. I don't like the idea of the stress. Some of the things you're talking about, which ballot did you come in on this time, et cetera. It's like, the whole thing was it with Jeter and one guy wasn't going to vote for Jeter.
I have no time for it. You know what? One thing that I think might help on that front, and that a lot of voting things do, and especially like my girls do dance. So when they do judging, they take off the top score and they take off the bottom score, and then they look at the average of the rest.
Hmm.
So if you took off, let's say 10% of the top, 10% of the bottom, and then you just look at the middle, you probably would get a more sensible outcome.
That makes plenty of sense. I love that, man. I mean, you get rid of all the crazy variables, whether somebody's so beyond talent or somebody's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it, my friend.
This whole thing about limiting how many guys they can have on the ballot. If you think there's 15 Hall of Famers, put 15 names.
Yeah.
You don't need to limit it. So
No, and I never was too upset if they didn't have somebody that year, but it seems like there's so many. Why couldn't you find somebody? But so we're talking about the Rays, man. Getting back without it. Jeez, I watched the game last night. Well, I told you I was in Longboat Key, so I was actually watching on my phone, play by play. I'm there watching the little balls going across the screen, saying, "Okay, okay," and now it's getting to what was it? Maybe the eighth inning, and things really started to. I'll let you set it up, because I know I could tell you what I saw fall apart.
well, you said but I mean, there's I think they were talking on the broadcast about scouting reports, right? And
Hmm.
they were sort of blaming those. But really, when I saw the setup, he was supposed to go low and outside. It ended up low and inside. And you just don't do that against a left-hander, especially in that stadium where the ball just flies over that
Yeah.
fence. So the the mistake was made. The Rays gave up what they had in terms of a lead, and then it ended up being where they had runners on the corners. The Rays did trying, they were down by one, and they had this is what I took out of it. They had the chance to pinch hit for Chandler Simpson. Kevin Cash did not. He trusted Chandler Simpson with one out, runners on the corners, and said, "Go get him." And it's the second time I think in the last week that Chandler's come up big in late innings and started something or continued something. And I think there's growth in there that is, he's pumped, he's energized, he's getting the guys riled up on the bench. That energy I haven't seen since Randy Arozarena and
Yeah,
Brett Phillips were cruising, the benches. So the it's nice to see that kind of energy. And when Jake Mangum was there, he was also igniting the Rays a lot like that with that, that passion and that everybody was in there and giving it. So to me, that moment for Chandler Simpson, even though it was a simple single up the middle, it was huge because it galvanized the Rays. And then you had another young Rays player come up behind him eventually in Junior Caminero and hit a grand slam. And I mean, there are moments in the season that you find like we have a sports station in Canada called TSN, and they always say the turning point, right? The TSN turning point. And to me, this series of games where the Rays have been able to hang around by winning some tight games when they can, by fighting through series, even though they've been swept of series before. All this hanging around is making them a very dangerous team because they have help coming. They have Josh Lowe in AAA now. He's on the verge of coming back. They have Shane McClanahan working through some tricep soreness, but the doctors say he's fine. So eventually he'll come out. Boyle was pitching again in AAA, and he again had a shutout. I let it go in the fourth, I think, and he had another shutout going. There's a lot of ammunition the Rays are going to have coming through, and their young guys like Carson Williams and Trey Morgan are getting more experience in AAA. So all of a sudden, when they're going to be forced to make decisions, and Jake Mangum and Josh Lowe come back, they're going to have assets to trade.
yeah,
And if we know anything about the Rays, is generally speaking, they're able to add value where they need it. I think they're going to need some help in the pen. There's some pen guys that are looking a little bit weary, and Hunter Biggie ended up on the IL. There's a couple of other guys. So when you're able to beat a team like the Jays by scoring 11 runs, and I think they're up again tonight 1-0 the last time I checked. That those are huge series because you're not seeing those teams as often as you used to. And so you're forced to kind of capitalize while you face them, whether it's early in the season or late in the season. So all this, joy that the young players are bringing in, uh, I think it's nice to see. And then the Rays fans, I know they're still waiting for the Yandy Diaz and Brendan Lau trades, but I think there's a lot to cheer about when it comes to the Rays. And if ever they can sort out a few of the kinks, like Christopher Morel was an example, Mark. And if I can talk about him for a minute,
yes,
I kind of I'm trying to make sense of what he's doing and why the Rays haven't been able to draw the best parts of him out. So, well, when I did some research on him, um, the way that it breaks down, and you always want to look at the wide array of tools, right? But he ranks eighth in terms of barrel percentage in Major League Baseball. So when you look at the list of players on there, in front of him, there's Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, O'Neill Cruz, Kyle Raleigh, Luis Torrens, Kyle Stowers, and Ben Rice. So he's right behind all of them. That's a pretty good company to be a part of, right?
yeah,
So then you're looking at that and you're like, there's a high hit percentage. He's supposed to be hitting for a high average. You look at the peripherals, and he has a .364 batting average on balls in play. When he's hitting it in play, it's going places and it's able to be productive. And then he's also in the top 25 in terms of bat speed. So he's got the bat speed. He's making a lot of barrels when he hits the ball. The problem is that he's not doing that consistently enough. So he's got a 16% swing percentage. So first of all, he's not swinging enough. He's watching a lot of strikes and being, called out on strikes. So he's got to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of, swinging more often.
right.
The other one is that he's just striking out too often. So one of the biggest drops in his year to year when you're looking at the comparison of what's dropped and what's gone up. So his inside the zone percentage of swings has gone up, and he's making contact more often on those. That's great. That's what you want, right? That's a good sign. That means he's seeing the ball well and he's walking 10% of the time. So between those two things, you're like, okay, well, that's productive. So what's the problem? Well, it's pitches outside the zone. So he's only making contact when he's swinging on pitches outside the zone. He's only making contact on them 28% of the time, whereas in the past he's been up to 47, 41, 46%. So that's a 72% swing and miss rate on pitches that he's swinging at outside the zone.
Mm.
That is not productive. That is why Christopher Morel is having a hard time. I don't know if it's a matter of not swinging at those outside pitches, or do you remember like some guys will shift with their position in the box? They'll go forward, they'll go back, they'll go, in one of the four directions to either give themselves more time to see the ball or less time so that they're swinging at a different spot of where the ball is. I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering if Christopher Morel might benefit from being closer to the pitcher so that the ball has less of a chance to break before he actually something like that. They need to
Yeah.
tweak something to try to because he's got all the tools. He's got the patience, he's got the swing, he's got the power. So it just seems to be missing that one ingredient that just lights it up. So I'm gonna keep monitoring it. I'll see if it changes in the right direction between now and the All-Star break because he's fighting for that spot. And the other thing I'll add with Christopher Morel, he's got one of the top 20 arm strengths of all outfielders in Major League Baseball. So, it's nice to have in the outfield to have that guy that can gun people out and keep them honest on the bases. So, if that bat gets going to be as productive as it should be, he should be a 200 ISO and above easy. He's sitting at 141 right now.
Mm.
Like, there's no need for that.
Yeah, I really hope that he's able to pull that together. It's making me think of a couple of things. One, that you're talking about a couple of guys coming back, like Josh, and pardon me, who's still going to be here, who's not. And with Morel talking about where he's willing to go as far as hitting outside the zone. And I don't want to necessarily cover this tonight, but we know that the peripheral area outside of the zone is kind of been subtracted. It's tighter. So it's a little closer to that rectangle than before. So something that could have been iffy is not so iffy anymore. It's got to be as close to that zone as possible. And I wonder how players are reacting to that with their own swings. I don't know.
It's a good.
Maybe I'll do some homework and get a little bit more on it. But I know it's got to be impacted how some of these guys think. Suddenly they're saying, well, that was a ball last time. Why did it a ball this time? A strike, really? Okay. Well, that was last week. Yeah, that's changed, and we'll see. You were talking about a couple of the other players, and you brought up Mangum.
Mhm.
Now I was looking at speeds, and you look across the league, speed from from home plate to first, and you know this. I know you know this. I would say it anyway. My gosh, now that's Chandler Simpson,
Yeah.
and he is the fastest. But the third fastest is Jake Mangum, and I'm thinking, my gosh, that is such a cool thing to have on your team. So base stealing also will come in with a lot of that as well. And I love a team that does a lot of good base stealing.
Right. So you're bringing up a good point where you have right now, like in the outfield, when you're looking at, who's going to be out there, you have Chandler Simpson, you have Cameron Meisner, you have Jake Mangum, you have Josh Lowe, you have Christopher Morel, you have Johnny DeLuca, you have Richie Palacios coming. Like you're up to seven guys before you even consider, who may move on or off, and then you're like,
Yeah.
there's going to have to be like Christopher Morel can cover second, I'm pretty sure. So in that case, you can send down Curtis Mead, who still has an option, and create some room with that way. Richie Palacios also plays second on occasion if he needs to. So that's where the pressure begins on Josh Lowe, Diaz, who's tradable for Rapice, who isn't. The draft is coming up as well. So what are you able to do and package together for teams that are needy? There's going to be some moves coming up, I think, in the end of May for the Rays because of who's coming back.
I'm curious to Walsey. I mean, I'm looking there, Taylor Walls. I think it's about a week ago or so, and I saw that he had 4 hits at 5 at bats. And I thought, who is this man? Come and stay, buddy. Come and stay.
Right. And I'll tip my hat to him. Like he's playing hard. You can tell. Like he's playing with passion. He's taking every at bat seriously. He's intense in every at bat. Like that's what you want to see, and that's how he has to play. I think for too long he was trying to be calm and kind of zen, and it wasn't producing what he wanted to produce.
Yeah.
So I like the electrified version of Taylor Walls and to be more amped and more intense. So I don't know if he's taking testosterone. Something is changed in May, and you know what? I'll tip my cap to him. I think he's earning it, and hopefully it keeps up.
I'm glad to see that too, because it's you see somebody come in and you're hopeful, you see some great things, and then suddenly you see it's not there, it's falling away. I say, oh my gosh, we're either gonna send you down to AAA, we're gonna trade you, we'll find something else for you, but it ain't gonna be here. And because of all the talent that the Rays have right now, you got to fight for it every day.
Yeah. The Rays have a lot more potential than people are giving them credit for. That's
Yeah.
all I'll say. All of their affiliates like are they're improving. I think the Bulls are 11 games above 500. The majority of them are 3 or 4 games above 500. The FCL's only lost 1 game out of 7. Like there's a lot of talent and a lot of them that were started slow because of injuries. I think the Charleston River Dogs right now are only 2 games under 500. They had started the year 0-6. Like they were really, really slow starting because of who they had like 3 stars that were starting on IL. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle the trade deadline because the Rays have a lot of ammunition that they could use and spin around at will. I don't know how aggressive they'll want to get, but if they're hanging around, they feel like other teams are lagging because, the suspect pitching depth, the suspect lineup with the Blue Jays, the this, the that, the other thing, like they could decide this is the year where we want to try to capitalize if they hang around long enough. It'd be interesting.
Well, I know I'm keep hoping that the pen is going to be strong and stronger.
Mhm.
Just looking at my phone, seeing you said it, and then seeing Fairbanks the other night. I said, "Oh my gosh, Pete, come on, my friend, come on!" And I'm just looking at it on the phone. And I'm like, "What the heck is going on?" And I thought we're going to give this damn game back to the Jays, and they didn't. The boys stayed and worked hard, and wow,
So what do you think about Shane McClanahan's return? Like the whole tricep soreness thing
yeah.
and the 2 Tommy Johns. Like, is there a thought process where maybe you bring him in a 2 inning stint just for this year, and you kind of have him take on Mason Montgomery's role, and then put Mason Montgomery as a closer because, like you, Pete Fairbanks is not giving me the warm and fuzzies
No.
when he's pitching, and I don't know, like it's not cool, right? It's warm, it's hot, like that was the whole premise last year and the year before where he had a nerve issue and it was cold and there's no excuses now. It's not an air conditioning dome. So yeah, there's work to be done in the pen, but they have really interesting arms in AAA, including Cole Wilcox, who they shifted over to the pen, and he's been doing really good as a reliever as well. But the big one is oh God, what's his name? Evan. Oh my God, I forgot his last name. I can't believe that's happened. Anyways, he's a swing and miss guy,
Yeah.
and he's very, 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 very strong. And they got him back from the Rule 5 because somebody had plucked him and handed him back. He's somebody that, if they ever add him on, I would be really curious to see how he handles Major League Baseball. Because there's some fans that I talked to online on Blue Sky that are just they're huge fans of his, and they've been screaming that the Rays have been mistreating him for 2 or 3 years because they haven't been promoting him fast enough, and they want to see him in the show. So it's fun to see that kind of passion, and sometimes opportunities come up, and you never know.
Well, make sure you post them on Blue Sky as you see that evolve. I'd like to see how that fella's coming along. That'd be great.
Yep, will do.
Oh, you know, there's two things. Like I said, normally I don't talk about Hall of Fame. If we didn't have all this going on with Pete, I wouldn't talk about it now because of the way I feel about the whole process. But the other thing that for the last couple of years and certainly the last few months was talking about the trop and where we're going to be and all of that. And I'm still of the mind personally, I just really don't want to talk much about it because it's just been up in the air so much, Matt. I still want a local team. And now I see this injury lawyer, Morgan and Morgan and Morgan and Morgan, saying yes, and hey, let's bring him to Orlando with Orlando Dreamers. I love the guy though. Up front, they asked him. He said, "Well, why do you want to do this, Orlando?" He says, "Are you like a big fan of baseball?" Nope, nope. It's all about money, make money. I said, well, he's honest. Scrooge, thank you for telling us up front. I don't really care so much about baseball, but oh gosh, Matt, this saga continues, and I think I just want to look in on it. Like, I don't know, about once every other month and find out what's going on with it because there's nothing I can do to control it. I mean, as fans, we can speak out. We can say what we'd like to see. The whole Ebor thing is gone. That development has changed. And I still like the idea you had of taking over George Steinbrenner's field and fixing it up and making it a great place for the Rays and a have seating that matches what attendance would make sense for this area. And to me, that's the best solution there is. But I don't know, brother.
When they
Thoughts?
when they retire Evan Longoria, right? There'll be a banner, there'll be something of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so where's that going to go? It's not going to go back to the Trop, right? They're going to hang it in the outfield somewhere. As soon as you do that, you lay claim to that place forever. That's the way it works, Mark. There's no takebacks. There's no gimmies. It belongs to the Rays from that point onwards. The number three in the outfield of Steinbrenner Field will not be for Babe Ruth. It will be for Evan Longoria. That's the way it's going to happen. I firmly believe that the art of the deal has to take place between Stu Sternberg and Major League Baseball and the Yankees. It has to be done. I think it just makes too much sense. There's no way you can lose an affiliate. Um, you know, you can't lose a Major League Baseball area as productive as Tampa could be just because you're hell bent on having a Yankees affiliate on a field in that city. It's ludicrous. If you put that in a book in a story, people would say that's outlandish. They would never do this. They're smart business people. Well, it's being done. Like so to me, hopefully everybody sees the light with everything going on this year. And the fact that so far, there's not been any hangups. You don't see players passing out. You don't see major rainouts that they're not able to make up. So it's going well. Now, do they want to have this kind of schedule every year where they force the Rays into being home so much in the beginning and then so little in the middle and a lot at the end? I don't know. I don't know how flexible Major League Baseball is on that front and whether or not some owners will cry foul saying that it helps them because of XYZ. Who knows what they will come up with. But there'll be some sort of, crying about it somewhere. But I think the Yankees have to have some sort of inkling as well that if they make their home in St. Petersburg, the beaches there are extremely nice. So you think that the Major League players are going to care about being in St. Pete? No, they're going to love it. They're going to say, the beach is right there. I'm rehabbing. I get to, what? This is awesome. So I don't understand. Now they don't have to fight the 2-hour traffic to get to the beach. They're right there. Like, there's a lot of pluses to it on both sides. Um, So I don't know. I don't listen to the news about the stadium because I just think like you, it's being tortured in back rooms that we do not want to sit in on either. Because we will be driven nuts if we were sitting there having to listen to the amount of nonsense going on. Um, but I do hope that it happens soon. And I've said this for a lot of this year and last year and the year before. The fans deserve better.
Yeah. Yeah, they do, my friend. Well, let's see. Here we are, Wednesday, May 14th. And before we leave, I definitely want to mention about Pete again because it is Pete Rose Day in Cincinnati. That's right. And did I mention this earlier? No, I didn't think so. And the funny thing about it being May the 14th is Pete's number 14. And they're giving away a jersey. But here's the favorite part. You see this jersey I'm wearing here? You do, but nobody else does. Chicago White Sox, duh, Pope. But Shoeless Joe Jackson. Well, who are the Cincinnati Reds playing tonight in Cincinnati? Shoeless Joe's team, the White Sox. So here we are on May 14th, Pete Rose Day. The Cincinnati Reds playing the White Sox.
And baseball God set that one up perfectly. That's amazing.
It's insane. Oh, and I got a nugget from a buddy of mine, Josh, today. Because of being in Cincinnati, much like in Louisville, the whole thing with the steamboats, they go up and down the Ohio River, and you've got these big smokestacks on them. Well, in the Great American Park, they had the smokestacks there as well on the outside of it. He pointed out to me on top of them, as far as like where you usually have flute out the top of the stack, there are 7 bats on each one of these stacks being part of that flute. 7 plus 7. So you've got the number 14. So they found a way to continue to honor Pete Rose, even though he wasn't supposed to be there. He was there.
Oh, man, that takes a lot to read into. Wow. That's awesome. I love it.
Oh, God. Oh, brother. Well, I'm having more fun than I deserve. I don't know what the score is right now. Have you seen it lately?
3-1 Jays.
Oh, my gosh. Jeez. Come on, guys.
Alejandro Kirk homer. I will say Josh Lowe hit a home run today for Durham. So that was nice to see. So, yeah, the Rays are down by 2, but they still have 3 innings left to go. So they've got a chance.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'll get it in to watch that. Matt, thanks again, as always, brother. It's always a lot of fun chatting about the Rays and the rest of the game.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All righty. Well, thank you all again for joining us here today, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon.
Just a reminder, you can find Matt at matgermain.bsky social. That's at mattgermain.bsky.social or Mark at baseballbizondeck.bsky.social. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck on iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to XTakeRUX for the music, Rocking Forward.